Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartia, and we are here at KubeCon in Seattle. And today we have once again Sirish Raghuram, co-founder and CEO of Platform 9. So first of all, thanks for being on the show once again. And tell me, when we look at this crowd behind us, it's massive. I've never seen that many people at KubeCon before. So what has been your kind of, so far impression or perspective looking at meeting all these people?
Yeah, it feels like it's 5 or 10x bigger than Austin last year. So it's very exciting for us. I think there's a lot of real enterprise companies here who are users or are very seriously considering usage of containers and Kubernetes. So I think it shows you that this technology is now truly getting into mainstream. People are trying to get into production. In Austin, there were very few large organizations that were having large-scale deployments of Kubernetes and containers. So that's definitely a noticeable change this year. So it feels like containers and cloud native are definitely advancing into the enterprise, and there's tons and tons of momentum in the space.
And what trends are you seeing emerging, since Austin versus here? We'll also talk about the trends going forward in 2019, but what you have seen so far, where we are in terms of adoption.
Look, firstly, I think what's happened is I think there's been some big M&A activity in the space, right? So obviously we know about CoreOS, we know about Red Hat, we know about Heptio. And I think that has, in a way, also added to a lot of attention and brought this to the forefront of people's thinking in the enterprise. One of the things that I see is basically that there's real enterprise logos here. Every other person that you talk to is a big enterprise company, and it's typically the SRE, the cloud ops, the software engineering architects. The Home Depot is here, right? I mean, there's Uber Engineering is here, and Apple is here, and Ticketmaster is here, right? So there's really large Fortune 500 companies that are here talking about running containers in production. They're struggling. They have challenges now that they're trying to solve at the next level, which is great to see, right? That's the progress that we're seeing in the community.
One thing that I have noticed, and no offenses, that sometimes I see that there are 5 or 6 vendors. They're offering the same kind of, they're addressing the same problem with their own solution. So will we also see some consolidation in that space also? I actually think it's a good thing because that means there are a lot of innovation happening. We see a lot of, it's a healthy ecosystem as well. So what do you think from that perspective? We have seen some major acquisitions, as you mentioned, Red Hat and CoreOS and Heptio, but what about the other layer?
I think it comes down to differentiated value, right? If you're providing something that's valuable to the community, then I think you're going to be fine. I do think that the distribution model, I think, it didn't work out very well for OpenStack. I don't think it's going to work out very well for Kubernetes because I think the physics haven't changed, right? The problem is that people want upstream Kubernetes. And anybody who goes and says upstream Kubernetes sucks, our Kubernetes are magic, there's an inherent contradiction there. If upstream Kubernetes sucks, then maybe you're saying that we shouldn't even be using Kubernetes. So there's an inherent contradiction in the distribution model. And I think so that's been a flawed approach. I think a professional services approach, the problem is it doesn't scale very well. It ends up being very expensive to customers. It ends up taking a long time to produce results for customers. So it's not great for customers. It's not great for companies to scale. And for these reasons, I don't think investors are keen on investing in a lot of professional services companies. So I think, but on the other hand, there are companies that are providing new innovative solutions. Like I think at Platform 9, we pioneered the managed Kubernetes model, right? And now you're seeing the big public clouds copy that and try to adopt essentially a managed Kubernetes. Amazon, for example, is trying to offer a managed Kubernetes, but lock you into the Amazon ecosystem otherwise. So I think that new approaches that add value to customers are absolutely going to see a lot of value. And I think if you're not providing something new and novel, then I do think there'll be a lot of consolidation, and that's not the worst thing for the community.
No, I think that is the natural course of evolution. That's how things happen in any industry. A lot of companies come in. But when we look at Platform 9, you did touch upon the value that you bring, and I totally agree with you with the distribution model. So what value, and I will actually add your previous answer to this question. So what value does Platform 9 bring to the Kubernetes ecosystem?
The value that we bring is very simple, right? With managed Kubernetes, we give you a fully managed service that gives you the confidence to deploy and scale Kubernetes and support it in production to hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of developers. So this couple of days ago, we announced at KubeCon that really large enterprise companies, including Aruba, including HPE, including Snapfish, including Kingfisher, the Home Depot of Europe, are using Platform 9's managed Kubernetes solution in production. And these companies are well known for their technology abilities, and they chose, after extensive evaluations, to go with Platform 9 because we're able to give them the speed and simplicity and the confidence in operations. We give them the SLA for Kubernetes so that they can make big bets on containers and cloud native.
You mentioned one of the problem of Kubernetes, which is not the problem of Kubernetes, is the distribution model may not work as it didn't work with other things. What challenges do you see with Kubernetes itself? Though the community is very, very active, they have learned from not learned, but they have been proactive to not repeat the same mistake. But still, what are the biggest challenge that you see when you help your customer?
We still see there's a lot of unsolved problems, right? So there's a lot of, let's call them unsolved problems, right? I think that the development experience is still complex. I think you take the average app developer and you give them a Kubernetes environment and they see a lot of knobs. They see a lot of infrastructure constructs and knobs. And I think there's a need to simplify that. There's a need to provide a more intuitive development experience on top of Kubernetes, which is the work that we're doing with Fission as a serverless framework on top of Kubernetes, is simplify the developer experience and just hide the complexity away, right? We think that observability, there's some challenges around that. Building microservices, this is not necessarily a Kubernetes problem, but building and running microservices is not necessarily easy. Operating microservices, which is why you're seeing a lot of innovation in the community around tracing and associated frameworks around that. So there's a lot of unsolved problems that we are yet to cross. Excellent. And then, of course, if you're not using a managed Kubernetes solution like Platform 9, you definitely need to figure out how are you going to solve the operational problem around Kubernetes, right? There was a CVE last week, there was a security vulnerability last week on Kubernetes. How can you be confident that you can roll out fixes to that at scale in production rapidly when things like that happen?
And as we talked earlier that what were the trends you saw in 2018, and since we are about to walk into 2019, what either the trends you are seeing or where do you see the community will be in 2019?
I think it's exciting. I think there's going to be a lot of work to broaden the conversation beyond just Kubernetes to supporting more of the microservices journey, right? So observability, service meshes. Service meshes are still not there. There's a lot of skepticism in the show floor around Istio in particular. People see the potential, but they also see the complexity. So I think, but the reality is if you want to truly move to a hybrid or a multi-cloud architecture, you need systems like these to help make it more seamless. So I think observability, service meshes, and application services that are running on top of Kubernetes will really be the key thing. And I think that will really change the landscape on cloud. I think this is how the industry is moving to a truly hybrid cloud architecture, because you're no longer talking about proprietary cloud services to do this. You're talking about open source, community-driven initiatives that are giving people a common application development platform and a application operations platform that is independent of on-premises versus public cloud.
Sirish, it was nice talking to you today. And of course, I'm confident that we'll be talking again. I think there are no conferences this year, so in 2019 we'll resume this conversation around where we are heading.
Yeah, this is officially the last one. So have a great end of the year, and I'll see you in 2019.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.